In 2009, 17-year-old Brittanee Drexel vanished just 3 days into a spring break with friends. For over a decade, her disappearance remained a mystery, until a shocking confession and arrest finally brought some sense of closure to her family. But new reports reveal there was an accomplice involved. What really happened to Brittanee Drexel? Who came forward with the truth? And who may have helped cover it up? Sit back as we unravel the heartbreaking story behind this tragic case. Brittanee Drexel was born on the 7th of October 1991 in Rochester, New York, to teenage parents Dawn and John. Still very young themselves, they struggled with the challenges of raising a child and eventually went their separate ways. Unfortunately, John gradually drifted out of Brittanee's life. However, she found a father figure in her partner's new partner, Chad Drexel. Chad embraced Brittanee as his own, and during his marriage to Dawn, he officially adopted her, giving her his last name. Brittanee faced her own challenges from an early age. She was born with a condition called persistent hyperplastic primary vitreous, or PHPV, in her right eye, which required multiple surgeries and ultimately left her blind in that eye. In 2008, Dawn and Chad's marriage ended, and around the same time, Brittanee's biological father John re-entered her life. Brittanee loved playing soccer, spending time with her friends, and was especially looking forward to going to prom with her boyfriend. Many of Brittanee's friends were planning to spend spring break in Myrtle Beach, and she was eager to join them, but when she asked her mother for permission, Dawn said no. She was worried about the lack of adult supervision and the unfamiliar teens on the trip. She also admitted to having a gut feeling, a premonition that something bad might happen. This led to a few typical teenager parent spats, and on the 22nd of April 2009, Brittanee asked if she could spend a few days at a friend's house to cool off. Wanting to give her daughter some space, Dawn agreed. Just 3 days later, Brittanee called her mum and casually mentioned that she was at the beach. But Dawn wasn't alarmed. After all, they often referred to Lake Ontario as the beach. And with temperatures reaching 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius, it seemed believable. But Brittanee was lying. She hadn't stayed at a friend's house. She had gone to Myrtle Beach against her mother's wishes. While in Myrtle Beach, Brittanee had a friend from home who was also staying nearby, and they made plans to meet up. On the evening of the 25th of April at around 8 p.m, she left her friends at the Bar Harbour Hotel, where she was staying, and began the 1.5-mile walk to Blue Water Resort to visit a friend. Surveillance cameras captured her arriving there at approximately 8:30 p.m. While at the resort, one of the girls back at Brittanee's hotel texted her asking if she could return the outfit that Brittanee was currently wearing. Just 18 minutes later at 8:48 p.m, CCTV footage captured Brittanee again, this time leaving the Blue Water Resort to head back and return the clothes. Along the way, she exchanged text messages with her boyfriend, expressing her frustration at the situation. But then suddenly, Brittanee stopped replying. Brittanee's boyfriend tried desperately to reach her, calling, texting, and doing everything he could to get a response. But all attempts failed. Grown increasingly worried, he reached out to the friends that she was staying with in Myrtle Beach, only to learn that none of them had seen or heard from her. So, with no other choice, he told Dawn the truth. Brittanee was in Myrtle Beach, and no one could find her. Devastated by the heartbreaking news, Dawn immediately called the police. She travelled to Myrtle Beach the very next day, and later made the difficult decision to relocate there, wanting to stay close to where her daughter was last seen, and to closely follow the investigation. Police launched extensive searches, combing through swamps, dumpsters, and remote areas for any sign of Brittanee. A few potential sightings were reported at a bus stop and a convenience store, but each one ultimately led to a dead end. The following day, Brittanee's phone pinged one final time, 50 to 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach, near Georgetown, before going completely silent. Dawn worked tirelessly to keep Brittanee's story alive, appearing on numerous media outlets, including the Dr. Phil show. But tragically, the years passed with no new leads and no answers. In 2016, investigators believed they might have finally caught a break in Brittanee Drexel's case, when a prison inmate called Taquan Brown came forward with disturbing new claims. Brown alleged that he had witnessed Brittanee being SA'd by a group of around 10 men at a stash house in McLennanville, South Carolina. According to his account, she briefly escaped but was quickly captured again, dragged back inside, and shortly after he heard 2 gunshots. He claimed a wrapped body was then carried out and disposed of in a nearby alligator pond. Authorities searched the ponds and investigated the accused man, who denied involvement, and he was also never charged. Over time, however, Brown's story shifted, and some began to question whether he mistaken the girl he saw for Brittanee. These inconsistencies ultimately cast serious doubts on the credibility of his account. Authorities once again found themselves at a dead end. Several more years passed without answers. That was until a breakthrough finally came. Thanks to advancements in cell tower forensics and GPS technology, investigators were able to refocus their efforts on key suspects. In May 2022, exactly 13 years after Brittanee Drexel's disappearance, 62-year-old Raymond Moody was arrested on an obstruction of justice charge. Raymond had long been considered a person of interest in the case, but at the time of Brittanee's disappearance, there wasn't enough evidence to make an arrest. Raymond was already well known to law enforcement. As a convicted sex offender, he had a deeply disturbing criminal history. In 1983, he was arrested for the SA of an 8-year-old girl, among other charges, and he was sentenced to 40 years in prison, but tragically, he served just 21 years before being released. After his release, Raymond spent the following years in and out of prison on various charges. His early life was also marked by instability and abuse. Raised by an alcoholic mother and a violent father, Moody's path was troubled from the beginning. Still, this traumatic upbringing offered no justification for the horrors that he would later inflict. Raymond Moody kept his dark secret hidden for 13 years before finally confessing to the abduction, SA and murder of Brittanee Drexel.
I was a monster then, and I was a monster when I took Brittanee Drexel's life.
He led authorities to the location of her remains and was swiftly arrested. However, at the time of his confession, he withheld key details, which we'll return to really shortly. Brittanee's remains were found buried in a shallow grave in a wooded area just outside of Georgetown, roughly 33 miles from where she vanished. Her identity was confirmed through DNA analysis and dental records, finally giving the family the answers that they had waited over a decade for. In October 2022, Raymond pleaded guilty on all charges and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 60 years for kidnapping and SA. So what key details did Raymond fail to mention in his initial confession? Raymond wasn't acting alone. He had an accomplice, his girlfriend, 56-year-old Angel Voss. Angel had struggled with drug addiction from the age of 12, following her parents' divorce. As a mother of 3, she endured multiple abusive marriages. Although she managed to reduce her drug use at times, she relapsed after the deaths of her 16-year-old son and her father. It was during this vulnerable period that she met Raymond, shortly after his release from prison. Raymond's disturbing fantasies never faded over the years. Knowing his dark desires, Angel proposed they go, quote, hunting for a girl to SA. They had actually ventured out together the night before Brittanee's abduction, on the 24th of April, but because of phone activity that could leave a digital trail, they returned home early to avoid detection. They then carried out their sick plan the following night. The couple went out multiple times to, use their own words, hunting for a girl to target. Around 9 p.m, they drove past Brittanee a couple of times. Realising that she was pretty and that she was alone, they decided that she would be their victim. Brittanee was approached by the Ford Explorer, which Raymond was driving. Angel jumped out of the car and attempted, quote, to soften Brittanee up. Pretending to also be tourists, Angel offered Brittanee a ride back to her hotel, a ride that Brittanee tragically accepted. Angel's role was to lure in whichever girl they chose. Had an unfamiliar middle-aged man approached a young girl alone, The chances of her agreeing to get in the car would have been slim. Their twisted planning was chilling, and it serves as a harsh reminder of how dangerous the world can be. Shortly into the ride, Raymond claimed that he was lost and said that he and Angel needed to switch drivers. Noticing that the back door was locked, Raymond climbed through the car into the back seat to restrain Brittanee. He told her he kidnapped girls for a $5,000 ransom from the City Chamber of Commerce and then released them. Angel drove on to the Polyard boat landing in Georgetown, a remote campsite near to their home, where Raymond had already set up a tent. Raymond then left for about 90 minutes to go home and shower and retrieve a briefcase of sex toys. This was 90 minutes in which Angel was alone with Brittanee, 90 minutes in which she could have released the 17-year-old, but she didn't. I'm not going to mention all of the details here because they are so disturbing, but when Raymond returned to the tent, he essayed Brittanee before strangling her with a yellow nylon rope, all while Angel sat and watched. Shortly after, Raymond disposed of Brittanee's phone in the Santee River and moved her body into their truck. By this point, Angel was terrified. Fearing that she might reveal the crime, Raymond decided to bury Brittanee's body alone, and he did so the very next day. In the early stages of the investigation, Angel lied to the police multiple times. She claimed that she wasn't even there during the assault and said that Brittanee had willingly joined them to party, even suggesting that Brittanee had called her friends at the hotel to come and pick her up. But the truth was actually very different. Angel had Brittanee's phone the entire time. But in 2024, after 18 years of deception and dark secrets, Angel finally pleaded guilty to 3 counts of making false statements about her involvement. In 2025, she was sentenced to 18 years in prison. The judge remarked, "All that occurred was foreseeable. All that happened afterwards was unforgivable." So how was Angel finally exposed? Raymond wrote a letter to Angel explaining why he planned to tell the FBI the full truth, hoping to secure a portion of his property for his grandchildren. In the letter, he claimed Angel didn't know he was going to commit murder, but after everything he had already done to Brittanee, he felt he had to end her life. Brittanee's mum, Dawn, has since sued Raymond for intentional infliction of emotional distress and outrage, and she was awarded a staggering $700 million in damages. To this day, however, none of that money has been paid. Every so often, a case comes along that really sticks with you. Brittanee's story is one of those for me. It's heartbreaking to think that if Raymond had served his full 40-year sentence, Brittanee might still be alive today. Brittanee's family never gave up hope, searching for her for 13 long years. She's remembered as a vibrant, ambitious young woman with a bright future ahead. Her tragic disappearance and murder serve as a painful reminder of the dangers young people can face. I'm glad that the family finally have some answers, but I'm absolutely devastated by how the story ended. That is everything I have for this case. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe.